While I've never been separated or divorced, I've worked with many parents who are. There are so many things to navigate when children are shifting between two homes, and I realize it is not always easy to get on the same page about all the various aspects of parenting. And sleep can be one of those tricky areas. Today, I want to share some tips specifically around sleep when your baby or child or children are going back and forth between two homes. Hi, I'm Allison Edgety, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of two. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. I don't think it will surprise anyone here when I say consistency is important when it comes to healthy sleep habits. It can be hard enough for two parents living together and parenting as a couple to get on the same page when it comes to sleep. So, obviously, things can be even more challenging when you are co parenting with a parent who lives in a different home. When it comes to sleep and co parenting, there are three particular areas where I think consistency is really beneficial, and consistency will help your child maintain healthy sleep habits as they shift back and forth between two homes. The first one is the timing of sleep, i.e., bedtime and nap times. The second is a consistent bedtime routine. And the third is how bedtime resistance or middle of the night wakings are handled by the caregivers. So let's start with the first one, the timing of sleep. The research is clear that our children, and all of us for that matter, get the highest quality and most restorative sleep when bedtime and morning wake time are at about the same time each day. So, getting on the same page about bedtime with your co parent is probably the most important thing you can do as it relates to trying to keep your child well rested. If you can't get on the same page about all the things I'm going to talk about today, at least try to get on the same page about a consistent bedtime. This is really going to be most beneficial for your child. If you've been around for a while, you know that I'm a fan of early bedtimes. And if you're new here, I strongly recommend that you go all the way back to listen to episode 1, where I make my case for an early bedtime. So I recommend that you have a regular bedtime and a rescue bedtime for your child. The rescue bedtime is the time that your child goes to bed if they had a poor nap day or they just seem tired. This is typically 30 to 60 minutes earlier than their typical bedtime. I'm going to circle back on this rescue bedtime in just a few minutes when I talk about handling sleep if you're not able to get on the same page with your co-parent. So, of course, if your child is napping, consistency with the timing of those naps should also be a priority as far as getting in alignment with what time your child is sleeping. Okay, on to the second area where consistency can be really helpful, and that is the bedtime routine. Bedtime routines are important because the bedtime routine sets your baby or young child's body up for sleep success. With infants and toddlers, these bedtime steps and the actions you take in the bedtime routine are what cue their body to prepare for sleep. This is also true for the preschoolers and the young children, say early elementary age, but the consistent bedtime routine also helps this age group with anxiety around sleep and bedtime fears. So, all of these routines set them up to have less of that. Having a clear structure and limits around bedtime routines allows a child to know exactly what to expect as it relates to sleep. And this is what really can reduce resistance, pushback, and fears and anxiety. Bedtime routines should be simple. For example, a bath, put on jammies, offer a feeding if you have an infant, 1 to 3 books, sing a song, and then give your little one a hug and a kiss and say goodnight. So keep it simple. So, when it comes to an infant or a toddler, consistent bedtime routines make it easier to sleep between the two homes because they have this very consistent cue. And as soon as those consistent steps start, their body just snaps into gear. Okay, right, we're getting ready to go to sleep. And for a preschooler or a young child, the consistent routine has the same effect. It starts to cue their body, but it also allows both parents to be able to avoid stalling or resistance. And sometimes there is stalling and resistance or anxiety around sleep at one particular home. So if you have a consistent routine, it can help ease that resistance or concern. Speaking of resistance, this brings me to the third area of consistency. It is ideal if both parents agree on how bedtime resistance and or middle of the night wakings will be handled. If, for example, one parent always reads extra books when the child asks, it's likely that the other parent is going to get some pushback about not reading extra books. Or if one parent allows the child to get up during the night and come sleep in their bed, the parent's bed, while the other parent has expectations that their child should sleep in their own bed all night. In this example, the parent wanting their child to sleep in their own bed is more likely to deal with frustrated wakings and resistance during the night. When both parents respond to resistance and middle of the night wakings in the same way, you're much more likely to see your child ease up on that resistance and stop with the middle of the night wakings. So, consistency between the two homes can really help in this area because they don't have different expectations. So, when it comes to sleep, children are generally going to sleep well at both parents' homes if both parents are on the same page about bedtime, the bedtime routine, and how to handle bedtime resistance and middle of the night wakings. I work with many families who are able to get on the same page in these three areas, and it's great. And for them, sleep training or doing a sleep reboot comes together much faster because they're all on the same page. However, I fully recognize and have worked with parents who simply aren't able to get on the same page as it relates to one or more of these sleep areas. If you're in that situation, I would encourage you to be very consistent at your home. Children are smart, and while it's not ideal for sleep to be treated differently at each home, if each parent is consistent with how they handle sleep, children can adapt. If your co parent is resistant to an earlier bedtime, for example, continue to keep your child's ideal bedtime at home. And if your child is always coming home from their other parent's house exhausted, plan to offer that rescue bedtime whenever you can. If their other parent is more lax about the bedtime routine or likes to do something different that you don't want to include, just be sure that you're consistent with the bedtime routine at your house. And if you have a toddler, preschooler, or early elementary age child who's pushing back to try to get things to happen like it does at their other parent's house, go ahead and acknowledge the difference and just stick to your structure. So here's an example. You can say something like, I know when you're at your dad's house, you have a bedtime snack, and sometimes you get extra books. But at this house, the kitchen is closed after dinner, and we just read 2 books each night before going to bed. So there you're just acknowledging that things are different there, but here's how things are going to work here. You could take a similar approach with night wakings. With an infant or young toddler, you just want to be sure that you respond to the wakings that happen at your house in a very consistent way. Your baby will learn to expect that response from you, even if they're getting a different response from their other parent. With children 18 months or older, remind them of the differences at bedtime. So when you're putting your child to bed, you can say, I know when you're at your mom's house, you get up during the night and you go to sleep in her bed. But at this house, we all sleep in our own beds all night. So if you wake up, I'm not going to bring you into my bed. If you wake me up, I'm going to. And then that's when you share how you're going to respond. So while these inconsistencies between houses can certainly lead to more sleep resistance, more night wakings, or just general struggles, being consistent at your house and ideally at both houses, even if it's different, can still result in good sleep habits. And even if your co parent doesn't want to have a lot of consistent structure, you can still move ahead with creating and maintaining the consistent structure and the boundaries. I just want to wrap up by giving a shout out to my single parents. I have worked with many divorced and separated parents who absolutely blow me away with how well they co parent. But I've also worked with parents who really struggle to get their co parent to prioritize healthy sleep habits. And they do end up with a bit of an uphill struggle when it comes to getting sleep in order, but it can still be done. And so I just want to send you a virtual hug and remind you that you are doing a great job. As always, thanks for listening, and I hope you'll come back again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.